Why, yes, I believe we shall.
Oh, I got a live one here.
Getting geeky in Little Rock. It's Shane Plays Geek Talk, a journey into the things we love. I'm your host, Shane Stacks. Thanks so much for joining, whether you're listening live on Saturday, August 24th at 1 p.m. Central in the Little Rock, Central Arkansas area on 101.1 FM The Answer, or via the online live stream at the website at 1011FMTheAnswer.com. And Zach, are we on Facebook? I think just today, I haven't gotten around to doing it. The studio here at Salem has had the opportunity or the ability for at least over a year to do a live video stream on Facebook. So I think I'm going to play around with streaming the show live on the Dave Ellswick page, Dave Ellswick Show page, and you can see the show live or archived there. So kind of see what the response is there, and if people like it that way. I'm a fan. I mean, I'm not against, like, I like to do YouTube and live streams, so I'm not against video as a medium. But I've always thought of, radio and podcasts as purely an audio medium. But if people want to watch it or listen to it this way, that's fine with me. So, if you want to see the horrid, turgid realities, I know Mark Pellegrini is in the studio. You're probably one of the few people I know walking around, Mark, that knows what turgid means.
I do.
It
has to do with turds, right?
No, yes. Turgid. I think it means like swollen or over. Yeah. So anyway, but I'm joined by very good friends of the show, Timothy Lim, and Mark Pellegrini. Tim Lim is a comics artist and an illustrator in general, and Mark Pellegrini is a writer, and they are an amazing team. I continue to refer to them as rising stars in comic books, and I firmly believe that. And if they sound familiar to you and you've never heard them on this show before, they're often guests on the Geek Panel on Dave Ellswick Show. And in fact, I think this coming on the 30th, I think we're going to be on the Dave Ellswick Show on the Geek Panel.
Yep, this coming Friday.
Yeah, and we're not going to do the debate today, but one of the discussions is what's the scary movies?
Scary stories to tell in the dark.
Scary stories to tell in the dark. Some of them liked it, some of them didn't. So there may be a little bit of an arm wrestling debate over that on the next Dave Ellswick Show. And of course, it's Dave Ellswick's 30th anniversary in radio, so we'll probably be loving on him for that.
Did you say 30th anniversary?
50th. Thanks for the correction.
On the side.
Yeah,
right
thanks for the correction. August 30th will be on
there we go.
the Geek Panel, but it is Dave's 50th anniversary in radio, and that's a big deal.
He said he's been doing it since he was, 17?
Something like that. Yeah. We were joking around when I guest hosted a couple of weeks ago that he was like 3 and he just got into radio. He was walking around with a ladle, and talking into it like it was a mic.
He wanted to be Orson Welles.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Yeah. And Dave, they broke the mold with Dave. I have a lot of love for Dave. But anyway, this is live radio on August 24th, 1 p.m. Central. And then, of course, we also go out as a podcast in multiple venues, which I will talk about later. But we've got Tim Lim, Mark Pellegrini joining me today. And it's always fun to talk to these guys anyway. But they've also got some cool announcements. They're always up to something, and they're always making a big splash. Or one might say they're always hopping.
Ugh.
Yeah, I had to do it. I had to do it in the comic book world. So if anybody wants to call in and talk to Mark or Tim, you could call 501-823-0965. That's 501-823-0965. You can always tweet me at Shane Plays. That's ShanePlays. So guys, what's been happening? What's been going on lately?
We launched Black Ops yesterday.
Yay!
Yay!
Tell for the people who don't know, what is Black Ops?
So Black Ops started last year in 2018 with Black Ops Volume 1. It was a sleeper hit, sold out within 48 hours. Like, for example, at Midtown Comics in New York, they couldn't even keep it on the shelves. I think part of it was the Dorman cover. We had a Dave Dorman cover. But we decided to do a sequel to it with Black Ops 2, and this is kind of our flagship property. What makes Black Ops 2, also called Black Ops Hare Trigger, so important is that it's both a sequel and a soft reboot. So people who are intrigued by Black Ops as a property but don't have the complete Volume 1, don't fear, because we actually get you up to speed with Volume 2 very quickly. So it doesn't require any foreknowledge, but if you're looking for a direct sequel and you do have Black Ops issues 1 and 2, you'll know and be able to follow right along just because you've already had the context to go with it. So we launched that campaign yesterday.
We do have the trade paperback of Volume 1 available as an add-on.
Correct.
On Indiegogo. Yep.
Oh, nice.
So if you wanted to catch up on the first volume anyway, that is available on the Indiegogo.
Right. When you check out and you want a physical copy of Volume 1, we actually have it available. You just go to checkout and it'll actually suggest it to you. It'll say, hey, you want Black Ops Volume 1? Here you go.
Well, I backed yesterday, and it's Black Ops Hare Trigger.
Correct.
Hare.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of wordplay and puns in the titles and stuff like that. Not necessarily. Now, the stories themselves, given the material, are played straight. Yeah. And that's one of the things I like about them. But the marketing or some of the titles can have some fun with wordplay and stuff like that. But it's Hare Trigger, Hare, like a rabbit, Trigger. And the main protagonist, the hero of Black Ops, is an exceptional rabbit, a bunny, right, who was exposed to radiation in like World War II, and now has an extremely long lifespan, and it has exceptional abilities, but it's still not like human level intelligence, right?
It's subhuman.
Yeah, but I loved Black Ops, the first 2 issues you did, that first story. I loved it a lot, and as I've said before, one of the reasons I love it so much is because the setup seems comical, but the stories are played straight, right? And they're really good.
We take a lot of influence from Ninja Turtles. That was actually just a little bit of inside baseball. When Mark got the first script to me, it's still the same, and in terms of the story and the progression, the only difference was the tone was off because our forte is humor, or Mark's forte is humor. He writes it very well, but the original script was so comedic, and I called Mark and I said, the script is good story-wise. The only problem is the tone, because what we're going for here is more of a Ninja Turtles type feel, where it's like you get the humor is on the front end, where if you look at Ninja Turtles, it is a ridiculous premise. It's like, hey, there's turtles and they're ninja. It's like, haha, isn't that silly? But then when you read the original Eastman and Laird book, it's very gritty. And that's what people loved about it, was they said they took a concept and they played it straight all the way to the end. Just go with it. Well,
the ludicrous was obvious,
right?
But that wasn't the setup was ludicrous, and people could appreciate that, but they never went with that in the stories,
right?
Yeah.
And that's why whenever we're at conventions and people ask us for the plot, it's kind of a canned response that I give, but I say it's the untold story of the United States government's greatest secret asset, which is a tactical rabbit that they can insert into situations to take out high-profile targets, because no one expects a rabbit coming.
Right.
But if you think about it, they're small, they're compact, they're unassuming. They're not threatening in the same way like a dog or some other creature is, so they're perfect for that reason. And typically that alone, in my opinion, that delivery is what people like, because they think, oh, okay, so it's like serious, and it's like, yeah, kind of not super serious like a Frank Miller book,
right? But the whole time it's serious. Like he's like literally infiltrating like a North Korean base and taking like guards out and stuff. But at the same time, you're like, oh, he's so cute,
right?
It's so weird, yeah. And it's interesting that you mentioned like gritty and Frank Miller and all that. I know that Mark is our resident Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles uber expert, mega brain. It wasn't the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles a parody of Frank Miller?
So there's an argument right now whether it was a parody or an homage to Frank Miller's Daredevil. It was kind of both, but yeah, basically it was a parody of Daredevil. I mean, even their origins intersect. Daredevil's origin was that Matt Murdock as a kid helped a blind man who was about to get hit by a truck. The truck dropped a canister of radioactive ooze and it hit Matt Murdock in the eyes. But the Ninja Turtles origin picks up right after that. That canister then rolled into the sewers and contaminated 4 baby turtles, and they mutated into the Ninja Turtles. So that was the parody aspect. And of course, Daredevil fights the hand, the turtles fight the foot. It's all, it was all just one gag. But the Turtle comic played it absolutely positively straight. If you go and you read Ninja Turtles #1, it's just, blood and guts, everybody fighting. And so when Tim and I first conceived Black Ops, it was originally going to be a spinoff of Walmite, wasn't it? And then and so we wrote that first script, we conceived the script, and then I wrote it as in the same tone of comedy. And then Tim was like, "It's funny, but it would be funnier if you played it straight," like Tim just said. And the rewrite wasn't that hard. I basically just went through the script and just took out all the jokes. And it ended up coming out a whole lot better. I'm glad we did it that way.
Well, I liked it a lot.
Yeah, and Volume 2, Hare Trigger, that one's gonna. So Volume 1, which is Buns of the Patriots, was
which I love.
Hey, Tim came up with that one, so blame him. So Volume 1 was a solo mission for USAGI where he goes into North Korea to stop the Punggye nuclear launch. Volume 2 is going to expand the cast. There's going to be the Black Ops unit is now, instead of being a solo unit, is now going to be a larger affair with new characters such as Patriotter and Rigger Tortoise.
Yeah, I got to stop you right there.
Okay.
Why is there so much USAGI, which is the main bunny, and so much Patriotter, and what is obviously Rigger Tortoise's book? Why is there so much? I mean, because
you're very astute, so your listeners are going to be very lucky when they hear this. We did that intentionally, and the reason why is because, well, you'll see.
Yeah, well, I love Rigger Tortoise. I've been an instant Rigger Tortoise fan since I heard the name. So I'm like, as I'm looking at the Indiegogo, I'm like, what are these other animals doing in Rigger Tortoise's book?
Rigger Tortoise is going to be the sleeper character of the book. So everybody who picks it up, just keep an eye on that little tortoise.
All right. Well, I want to get back to that. We'll be talking more in today's show about Black Hops, both as a property and the current Indiegogo that launched yesterday and is already doing quite well. I jumped on it pretty quick. I was telling you guys on the way in, my friend Justin, who's the Mobley Detective Agency, there's the ongoing saga with Muffin and all that stuff here on the show, and I've got the Mobley Detective Agency. Well, my friend Justin messaged me yesterday, and he was like, first, he was number 1 on your Indiegogo. And I think by the time I jumped in, I was like number 9. It was either 7 or 9.
Tell him if he's listening. If we see him at another show, we'll give him the hookup. Okay. We always try to. Believe it or not, and Mark can vouch for this, but every time we do a show, literally anyone comes by and says, "Hey, I know you from Twitter, or I know you from Facebook." We give out so much free stuff. We literally have like bins of free stuff.
Cool.
It's great because it means that people will tune in, they'll listen, and we like to reward that as well. I think it's really cool to have a lot of people who keep up with us.
Yeah, I think he was literally, he had cleared his cat, he had done everything, and was just sitting there refreshing, and just jumped right on it. So he's a big fan of what you're doing, and he's a big fan of like rags and all that stuff. So he's interested in that new unified.
Well, it sounds like he's a fan of Matt Weldon's art, and
I believe so.
Matt Weldon's drawing half of. So there's 3 stories in Black Ops Volume 2, and
there's 3 distinct stories.
Yes,
and Matt's drawing 2 of them. So if he likes Matt Weldon's art, he's really going to love this book.
Okay, well, I think, and I don't want to speak for him, but I think he might be trying to get by the Arkansas Con that's coming up in a couple of weeks. So maybe he can drop by. But anyway, super cool guy, good friend of mine, and he's. I know a lot of my stuff about the comic book world, especially indie comics, because of him, because he's always coming in and, hey, did you see this? Did you see that? And he's been supporting you guys since day one.
Wonderful. We're glad to hear it.
Yeah. Anyway, so I wanted to ask a couple of other things, or I wanted to highlight some stuff you've been doing. One, Tim, I see that the Soulfinder Demons match Indiegogo finished.
Correct.
And that you did the art, and it was a story by Douglas Ernst, if I believe right.
That's right.
Right, if I believe correct. Now, it funded at 300% plus, 10K goal. It funded at 33K, so 33,000. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Now, you did 2 things that were unusual for you as a comic artist. One, you did all the interior art, which is not something you always do. A lot of times you specialize in covers when you're working on other people's properties, right? But also, this was quite a distinct departure in visual style. So I was just curious, how far did that like challenge you? How did you feel about that? Was there anything challenges you had to overcome, or you'd want to share with other artists that you had to approach that?
It was tough, just to put it frankly. And I mean, I know Doug, if he's listening, and he listens to the show too.
Oh, good.
He knows because I've told him
Doug.
about it.
Yeah.
And part of the reason why is because Mark and I focus more on comedic aspects. We like to entertain, and part of entertainment is, that's why we like the Ninja Turtles model, because I feel like you get the best of both worlds. You get these turtles who are visually appealing, they're amusing to look at, but on the other hand, the story itself can be serious. What happens when I have to shift gears and focus on something that's completely serious? So it meant that I had to challenge myself. I was actually taking basically drawing lessons from Matt Weldon, because he and I, whenever I'm in Texas,
and
we
I
live
like
like
his
30 minutes
style
away.
on Punchline. There's a very clear style. I don't know how to put it. It's
His form is good, so
Right.
he's very good at layouts, and his detailing, like his cross hatching, is very expressive, very emotive. And so I was studying a lot of his art to try and get a similar feel for doing the book, but it was very harrowing and very challenging. I mean, there were days where it was honestly, I don't want to say not fun in the sense of not enjoyable, but the process of it was very arduous because I felt like I was taxing myself. So I'm very happy that the book turned out the way it did. Brett Smith's colors augmented it, so definitely have it standing out. The pages that we've gotten so far I think Brett's colored 25, so the book is halfway finished in terms of colors, and I'm right on his tail with the lettering. So as he turns in new pages, I letter. So right now we're on track for our printing and fulfillment. But what we're seeing right now, I've just been telling Doug, like, don't show anyone because right now it's looking great. And I want them to be surprised when they see it, that we're going to go above and beyond their expectations.
Well, the visual style was very different for you. Very good, but very different. Looking forward to it. Are there any other projects going on? Obviously, we'll talk about Black Hops, Hare Trigger today. Is there anything else that either of you want to, like Friends stuff or something that you've seen that you think is really good that you would want to promote or mention?
There's a couple. I'll just listen off real quick.
Sure.
So I know that like Preston Poulter with Pocket Jacks Comics, he has a book called White Lily. He's very focused on historical storytelling. So it's about like female fighter pilots during World War II. He has a campaign. Our friend Doug Tenaple has a campaign going on as well.
Is it Kick Stompers or something Stompers? I can't remember the name of it.
Is it Doom Kickers?
Doom Kickers.
Yeah,
that's
he has a Doom Kickers,
yeah.
but he has Earthworm Jim, obviously. Right. Who else do we know who's running a campaign at the moment? Soulfinder's ended, and it's not in demand, so we can't really discuss that at the moment. There's a lot. I mean, like, there's another guy, George Alexopoulos, has a book called Mary Sue, which is pretty funny. So
if you know what Mary Sue means, this could be interesting.
And he's a great illustrator. I was just looking at that the other day, and that looks like a really fun one as well. If you're listening over into Twitter sphere and you want to call in and recommend one that's escaping my mind right now, feel free to do so.
Yeah, 501-823-0965.
Yeah, we have some that haven't launched yet. Like Eric's going to be doing his Roanoke campain.
Yeah.
And let's see, what else other ones are going to come now?
We have Common America, which we haven't even talked about yet.
I'm way excited for Common America. Go ahead and tell us real quick, because that's going to be another project coming from you, right?
It is a completely
That's
original...
what the show's about today. It's Hare Trigger or Black Hops, but it's also, what are you guys doing right now?
It's a completely original IP, so it's basically, I don't even know what to compare it to, but that's why we're spitballing as far as what it's going to be about.
Right.
I mean, we kind of have some ideas, but it's
this
basically
one's going to be out and out comedy, right?
I'm really looking forward to it.
Yes and no. So there's going to be a comedy element, but it's kind of like with how Black Hops had like a serious moment in it. One thing that Mark and I had talked about was one aspect of it that I do want to explore is I'm tired of the whole like strong independent female motif. In fact, and I told this to John De La Rose the other day. I said, it doesn't even matter who you are. I might like you, I might not. But if you're going to describe your character to me, and I'm like, hey, describe your superheroine, and if you say she's a strong, independent character, I automatically will not read it because it's and he's like, what? Why not? And I said, because at this point,
it's becoming almost a not a trope,
should go without
it should go without saying that that's how they are.
Right,
that's not a personality. That's a default.
Well,
for
most
a hero.
heroes are usually strong characters.
Right.
Or most protagonists are either strong or have to find the strength as they go on their hero's journey. But I mean, the big thing right now, and I'm not even going to say this is a political statement. I'm just saying it's just a dynamic that, you know, strong female protagonists are the hip thing right now.
Uh-huh.
And I saw a thing the other day that it was Stallone and somebody else were working on a property, and Disney turned it down because it wasn't female protagonist. And
it was the Dolph Lundgren project.
Yeah, it was Dolph Lundgren and Sylvester Stallone. And when you hit that point, you know, it's like they're no longer making business decisions. It's all about,
it's about identity now.
Right, or whatever. You know, whatever. And that's, I don't like it, but it is how it is, you know, but with indie comics, you can find a wide range of stuff if you're trying to get away from what the mainstream is doing.
Right.
You know, so I would be very surprised. I could be wrong, but I'd be very surprised if DC or Marvel did in their main, not in an imprint, but in their main stuff, did something like Black Hops. Now, Image maybe, because Image is more of a publishing house than an actual one big overall studio, right? But yeah, the mainstream probably wouldn't do something like Black Hops.
You know, the irony about it though is that in the 90s with the independent comics movement, it was like you read independent comics for the edgy stuff,
right?
And then now it's like you read independent comics for like
the normal
stuff. The normal stuff, like the traditional stuff.
Isn't it weird?
It is very strange. I mean, I like
strange.
it. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've never thought I'd see the day where I'd read more independent stuff than mainstream, but here we are.
Well, I recommend, of course, our mutual friend Edwin Boyette is the lead ambassador for a website called IndieCron.
Right.
And I think it's INDIECRON.
Yes.
Right? IndieCron. And what that does is it aggregates all of the independent comic or all of the comic book campaigns that are on Indiegogo. Now, it's not going to get you the Kickstarter stuff, but a lot of comic book stuff has really started moving over to Indiegogo.
Right. And now
yeah.
he's expanding it to basically anything in the independent range. So
Nice.
I don't know if they're actively considering Kickstarter, but they might.
Cool. Well, I know that I had Edwin on a few months ago, and Indiegogo had actually exposed their database API so that he could just pull straight from there. Yeah, so he's not manually having to, but who knows?
Sure.
So you got Common America, which is another thing that's interesting about that is, if I remember right, that one doesn't have any. You said that one's the one that's just for pure fun. There's no
it's technically
commentary.
it's technically a spin-off of Wall Might, but it's really its own thing. It's going to kind of be a soft reboot. And it's going to be sort of a parody of like Sailor Moon, Super Sentai, Power Rangers kind of stories with Common America, who's going to be our lead heroine of the book. And it's going to be something funnier, lighter, but still have a moral center to it.
Cool. All right. Why is that? Hold on a second. So somebody responded back to the pictures that we, I think he's making fun of the pictures we took. He said, why is that guy pointing at you? And he's talking about you, Tim. So I guess when I was pointing at them, he's like, why is that guy pointing at you? It's Dragonfire. I don't know. Dolly Cat 5 on Twitter. Yeah. So anyway, that thing you push.
She always pretends that I'm a real rabbit.
Okay.
If you're listening, I am a real rabbit. Let's just let that keep on going in your head.
And you can go to POTUS Thump, which is Tim's Twitter, or mine, which is Shane Plays, and there's pictures of a Black Hops plush in a vest. And we're all pointing at it and happy and everything. So,
and you guys can decide on who wore it better.
Yes, who wore it better. All right, so I want to throw out another. I have two sponsors actually that also have a campaign going right now, and that is the Wild Stars 4, Wild Star Rising, and that's Michael Tierney, Comic Book Store Collector's Edition, and Cursova Adventure Fiction Magazine, and I think that has 2 or 3 days left. And they're closing in on the goal, and it's a collected edition plus some new material on all of the Wild Stars 30-year-plus comic book novel, which is just bonkers. There's so much cool stuff going. Some of the enemies are hyper intelligent T-Rexes with psionics, so it's just crazy. So and I think, and you mentioned John Delarose.
Right.
It sounded like that Alex from Cursova called in briefly.
He did.
Yeah, and I saw him thanking John for having him on the stream, so and evidently it helped.
Yeah, because they're only, I think, $1,000 from their goal.
They're very close.
Yeah, so it closes in on Monday. And $1,000 seems like a lot of money.
Yeah.
But
no, it's jumped up a lot. They've made up. Since they went on John Delarose, they've only got like a couple $100 left.
Wonderful. I'm glad to hear it.
That helped a lot.
Yeah.
And, Cursova Magazine is doing some really cool stuff in like pulp, adventure fiction. Of course, I love Michael. Know Michael forever. Yeah. And that's where I got my Black Hops from, was through Michael. Ironically enough, it was hard to get local copies when it first came out.
I'll tell a personal story about Michael. I was very touched. So he was telling me, he said, Black Hops issue 2, we couldn't get it into stores. I ordered so many copies of it, but basically there was a mess up at the Diamond warehouse. And I've been trying to get into horn with them. I actually went over there to see, and I said, well, it's no problem, Michael. I mean, these things happen. Right. And he said, no, it upsets me because I've known you ever since you were a 5-year-old. And to have you walk into my store without the books on the shelf, like, really bothers me. And that touched me because I was like, am I that old? Like, I remember that I've been going there since I was 5 years old, but to me, it just seems like, yesterday. Mm-hmm. So
he's watched you grow up, man.
Yeah.
There's several local artists and comic book folk that he said he's gotten to watch grow up and get into the industry and all of that. So, but yeah, Wild Stars 4, Wild Star Rising, check that out. That'll be in the show notes. All right, guys, I got a banter with Zach. If I don't, horrible, terrible things happen. Zach How the heck are you, buddy?
I'm doing great.
And you guys are always welcome to jump in on the banter. That's always an open invitation. All right, dude. So last week we had the Operation Uno Digits finally came to a culmination, and it was dramatic. Totally dramatic. Let's hear that again. This is how dramatic that was. Let's hear it. So the head of my news team, Sal, his grandmother and her dog Muffin, it's those two, not him, but they get upset with me if I don't banter with Zach. And I had about 3 weeks in a row where I pre-recorded, so I didn't get to banter with Zach. And we had all this intelligence where the Mobley Detective Agency had been monitoring Muffin's phone and text messages and emails, and there was this Operation Uno Digits thing we couldn't figure out. Well, he finally gave it the go, and it all came out a week ago, and we had a new employee here on the news team named Miss Pennyfingers.
Okay.
So we had Miss Pennyfingers, and everyone loved her, and she was a go-getter, and she was just making herself indispensable. And the head of our news team, Sal, they fell in love, and we're going to go off to get married, and she jilted him at the altar.
How dare she?
And it was a master plan from Muffin to disrupt the Shane Plays Geek Talk news team. It was
trust a dirty dog.
Zach, it was dramatic. So we also found out that she had installed all kinds of spyware and malware and stuff in our servers, and it was just a big deal. But Sal, I said, look, you've been through a hard time. He just crumbled. And I said, look, you've been through a hard time. I said, why don't you take like an hour off? Right. And he ended up, he went home and he locked himself in, and he's eating ramen with cold water. He's like punishing himself. So we finally got him to come into work, but now he's hiding in the newsroom and he's just eating ramen noodles with cold water. So it's progress, but we don't have a news segment this week because Sal's just devastated. Sal's gone in, and the disruption that Miss Pennyfingers did, if that's her real name, to our server and network, we can't do any news this week. So, and I got to tell you, Zach, I don't know if you've noticed, but Sal is spending so much time in the newsroom. It's getting a little ripe in there. Have you noticed that?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, I think we need to get, I don't know, the stick-ups or whatever. I don't know. And I don't know, this whole cold ramen thing is worrying me, but I'm sure Sal will bounce back. So, folks, remember, for every $1 of support that the show gets by Patreon, the news team gets a penny an hour raise. We may kick in another penny for some sort of rehabilitation effort for Sal. I don't know. It's a win-win for everybody. Remember, it's not Sal. It's not his fault. It's her grandmother or his grandmother and her dog Muffin. It's just crazy. All right. So, Zach, here's our banter topic this week. Disney announced all kinds of stuff yesterday for their streaming service. Have you seen any of this?
I missed it.
Dude, there's all kinds of stuff. Have you guys seen any of this that Disney's announcing for their streaming service? So we've got an Obi-Wan Kenobi series. Mm-hmm. There's The Mandalorian is starting like November 4th. And then there's 3 live-action Marvel shows. I think we already knew about She-Hulk, if I remember right, but there's going to be one on Miss Marvel, which I believe that's the younger girl that has like the Kamala Khan that has the stretching powers. Yeah. What exactly are her
powers? Are supposed to be shape-shifting, but the writers aren't very creative, so they just give her like
big arms. They give her like big arms,
big hands,
and stuff,
and stretchy powers because they don't have the imagination to do much with shape-shifting.
But you're not bitter. Yeah. We're getting some unscripted short-form Muppets Now stuff, a remake of Lizzie McGuire.
Someone asked for that, I guess.
Wow. Yeah, somebody. Let's see. And then this one, guys, I'm not even playing. This has my buttocks tingling. And that's okay. I said that on air because that's how excited I am. Moon Knight, live action Moon Knight. Mm-hmm. I hope they do it right. I hope it's bat crap crazy Batman. Because that's what Moon Knight is supposed to be.
You might be the only Moon Knight fan in the state of Arkansas.
I don't know, man. There's a lot of Moon Knight love out there.
What is actually Moon Knight?
Moon Knight is this character they introduced to Marvel in the 70s. He's
Batman if Batman was Jewish.
Well, not just that. He's okay. Thank you, Mark, for that. His bar mitzvah was just crazy. Anyway, now I can't even think. Okay, so. They had this series at Marvel called Werewolf by Night, and they introduced Moon Knight, who was basically, at the time, Batman in a white uniform, right, with a hood, and his batarangs were like little crescents, like a crescent moon and all that stuff. But they've gone on and expanded the character, and he's magic based, and at night he's hard to kill, and he's super strong. But what's really interesting about him is that they've changed. I think it's dissociative personality disorder. It used to be called he's got multiple personalities. So he's an ex-CIA operative who was like betrayed by his superior and left for dead and brought back to life or saved by this moon god named Khonshu. And his name is Mark Spector, and he's rich. So he's like Bruce Wayne like that. But he's got like 4 or 5 personalities. And he stalks the night.
And he wears a different costume with each personality. Right?
There you go.
Yeah.
So he's basically Roger from American Dad.
Well, there you go.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'd watch that.
If done right. Now, if they do it as some high concept navel gazing thing, but if they just do it as
I know we're excited, but it's probably going to end up like the Netflix Marvel shows, where it's going to be like 5 episodes of plot stretched out over 13 episodes of filler, and it's probably going to be really boring and slow.
Well, I hope they play it as bat crap crazy Batman with multiple personalities, and I'll watch that.
That sounds interesting.
I'll watch it, but they'll probably do some whacked out high concept. I've got to resolve my daddy issues or something. I don't know. One of the alts is going to be what? Gender bent. You know it.
Oh, yeah.
You know it.
Yeah.
So, anyway. Oh, Hilary Duff is going to still play Lizzie McGuire. So, it's not a reboot. It's a revival. So, it's kind of like they're doing Fuller House now.
Oh, so probably about her daughter or something. Yeah.
And then, of course, you've got the Mandalorian.
Is Boba Fett actually going to be in that show, or is it going to be about other characters?
I don't know.
Is the Obi-Wan series, is that live action? Or
that's live action with Ewan McGregor.
Yep.
I guarantee you they're going to set it in his years on Tatooine. Would be what that would be my guess.
That'd save a lot of money, just film the whole show in a desert.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, back lot with some sand on
That'd
it.
be funny because he didn't do much. It was like a sitcom where he just goes, he's like Cheers. He just goes
hangs
to
out at that.
Mos Eisley.
Yeah, they walk in and they're like, Boba!
Yeah.
He's like, how's it going? He's like, what was it? Norm's most famous one. He's like, it's a dog-eat-dog world and I'm wearing milk-bone underwear. So he's always got something clever to say when he goes and sits down to drink his beer. So anyway, does any of that interest you, Zach?
Oh, no doubt.
No doubt. So would you subscribe to Disney Plus?
I was already planning on doing that.
Were you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
They're going to have all the Simpsons episodes on it too. That was part of the trailer was the Simpsons. Now they got the Fox license because they own Fox now.
Dude, they're like eating every. And then of course I'm not even going to go into this, but there's this fallout
with Sony
over Spider-Man and the MCU and I saw they're trying to storm Sony headquarters. I don't know.
Everyone's blaming Sony, but it was because Disney wanted more money. Disney was the reason why they fell through, but we're all blaming the other guy because, you can't touch Disney.
All right. What about you guys? Anything in this interesting to you?
No.
Nothing for Tim?
No, I'm sorry. I'm kind of I'm a little jaded about Star Wars and Marvel. I'm not really interested.
I got to say, I'm not lying. I'm interested in that Moon Knight. Yeah. I just want to see what they do with it, because I've actually been kind of pleasantly surprised with what DC's been doing with some of their streaming stuff.
The problem with Marvel is they seem to always find a way to ruin it. Like I was interested in that Punisher Netflix series because if it's going to be like the Max Punisher series or the Marvel Knights Punisher series, this is going to be really good. And then I watched it and then it's like no, it's terrible. They found a way to ruin it.
All right, well there we go. Okay, so that's the banter. Anybody else? Okay, any other comments on the Disney Plus? Doesn't sound like it. All right, Zach, let's get to a break, and then we get back. We're going to talk about Black Hops, Hare Trigger, with Tim Lim and Mark Pellegrini. First, before the break, some real quick show notes. Just want to remind everyone, if you're listening to the podcast or Krypton Radio or YouTube version or any of the versions that's not the radio broadcast, you can go to shaneplays.com. That's ShanePlays.com. and find show notes for today's show and previous shows and etc. You can always tweet me at Shane Plays. That's ShanePlays, either during the live show or anytime after. I always love to get your feedback and maybe you have a recommended guest or topic you'd like to hear. Anyway, I just love to hear from my listeners. And speaking of the show going out as a podcast, last week's show is archived on the blog at shaneplays.com. That was episode 196, which was D&D and RPG news and a discussion of running role-playing games, D&D and etc. for kids with Carl Heil. And that was a really good show. Podcast itself can always be found on the blog at shaneplays.com, iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, Podbean, SoundCloud, YouTube, and more. And last but never least, Shane Plays is carried on Krypton Radio. Krypton Radio is SciFi for your Wi-Fi, kryptonradio.com. Don't forget, if you're into computer role-playing games, my book with Professor Matt Barton of Matt Chat fame, Dungeons and Desktops, The History of Computer Role-Playing Games, 2nd edition, is out now. It's getting great reviews on Amazon, and you can find it on Amazon or at the Taylor and Francis online store. This is a updated version of Dungeons and Desktops, which is one of the definitive works on the history of computer role-playing games. And I was just real privileged to work with Matt on that. And we're real super pleased how that book came out. The 2nd edition has revisions, over 200 pages of extra content, all color screenshots, and it covers, more of the history from the last 10 years, including what we call the Kickstarter Renaissance, and then thoughts and projections of what we think is coming. So check that out. It's Dungeons and Desktops, The History of Computer Role-Playing Games, 2nd edition, with Matt Barton and myself as the co-author. And then also Arkansas RPG Con registrations are now open. Head on over to arpgcon.com for Arkansas RPG Con 2019 on November 9th and 10th. That's right, for the first time in its 3-year history, Arkansas RPG Con will now be a 2-day event. This convention just keeps getting better and better. It is focused exclusively on tabletop role-playing games, and it's a lot of fun. So remember, go check out arpgcon.com, and I'm going to be there. So I want to see you there.
Go and get us to a break.
Comic book lovers, visit thewildstars.com today. From the mind of author and comic book industry expert Michael Tierney, it's not just a comic book, it's a comic book novel. The Wild Stars is sci-fi and so much more. Learn the explanations behind UFOs and space gods. This isn't the Twilight Zone. This is the region of the Milky Way galaxy known as the Wild Stars. We guarantee you've never read anything like it. The complete comic book novel took 20 years to tell, with one reviewer noting, the story of the Wild Stars stretches ambitiously across space and time, from small-town murders to the destruction of planets, with every event given multiple layers of meaning. If you haven't read The Wild Stars, you're missing out. Visit thewildstars.com today. Are you a fan of thrilling adventure, daring suspense, and just a touch of romance? Cursova has you covered. Since 2016, Cursova has been publishing the very best in contemporary fantasy and science fiction, retro pulp, and for you D&D gamers, Appendix N style fiction. Based in Little Rock, you can pick up their flagship magazine locally or at Michael Tierney's The Comic Book Store on Treasure Hill Road or Collector's Edition on JFK in North Little Rock. Swing by one of Michael's stores and pick up an issue or find them on Amazon. C-I-R-S-O-V-A. Doesn't start with a K, it starts with a C. C-I-R-S-O-V-A, Cursova Magazine. Check them out today. You want to go ahead and throw out some love to Game Goblins. Some goblins are your friends. Game Goblins is Central Arkansas's premier retailer of Magic the Gathering, Warhammer 40K, board games, card games, RPGs, miniatures, and hobby accessories. Call Game Goblins at 501-224-GAME or visit them online at gamegoblins.com. That's 501-224-GAME or gamegoblins.com. Conveniently located 1121 South Bowman, right on the corner of Bowman and Canis in West Little Rock, and staffed by friendly employees, Game Goblins has expanded their store size, and there is plenty of room for exciting inventory and tables for play space. You'll like that space because Game Goblins has gaming events every day of the week. For all of your gaming needs, I heartily recommend Game Goblins. Make sure to check out their customer loyalty program that rewards you based on your actual purchases. Game Goblins earns your business and keeps it. First-time customers, mention Shane Plays and receive $10 off your purchase of $50 or more. Tell them Shane Plays sent you. And folks, if you do visit any of my sponsors, please tell them that you hear about them on the show. That helps them know that their advertising money and the relationship we've built is time and money well spent. Shane Plays Radio is blessed to have sponsors, and we appreciate them very much. However, did you know that you can also support the show as an individual for as little as $1 an episode? Simply go to patreon.com/Shane Plays.
Hey, welcome back to Shane Plays Geek Talk, a journey into the things we love. Thanks for listening. I'm Shane Stacks, your host, joined by comic book creators Timothy Lim and Mark Pellegrini. Timothy Lim is an artist and illustrator. Mark Pellegrini is a writer, and they're both, as I like to say, rising stars. I would say, in the indie comics, but really in comics in general, because so much amazing stuff is happening in the indie comics arena right now. On Indiegogo and Kickstarter and other methods. There's some really great stuff going on out there. So what we talked about before the break, one of their main properties is called Black HOPS USA GI, and it's Black HOPS, HOPS, and it's USA star GI, and it's kind of an homage, tip of the hat to Usagi Yojimbo, right?
Yes and no.
Yes and no?
Because
okay.
Usagi is Japanese for rabbit.
Right. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Right.
Oh, okay. Right. So anyway.
Yeah, we do have a story about that, though.
Oh,
so
okay.
we were originally going to call the first volume USA GI, just USA GI. Then Antarctic Press, our publisher, they know Stan Sakai, the creator of Usagi Yojimbo, and they just decided, to be nice guys to ask him if he was okay with another book called basically Usagi, USA GI, sitting on the shelf next to his.
Right.
And he politely but firmly asked us to add something to the title so it wouldn't be next to his book.
Yeah, okay.
So Tim was like, Mark, can you come up with a new title like in the next 5 minutes because we're about to go to print? And so I threw a whole bunch of really cruddy puns at him real quick. And one of the ones I threw out was Black Hops, and I immediately no, that's terrible. Don't use that one.
That's great.
Tim's like, too late. We're using Black Hops.
That's totally great.
He didn't like it. I love it.
I love it. I love it immediately. And then to go even further, the first story was Buns of the Patriots.
People have we've already said on Twitter in a couple of comments, and people might think we're joking, but now I'm serious. So Volume 3 is literally going to be called Apocalypse Now.
Is it going to be a journey up the river and go into Joseph Conrad's whatever? Because Apocalypse Now was based on Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad, right? Okay, so anyway, all right, so what Black Hops is about, if you didn't catch the first part of the show, there is a rabbit, a bunny, but he's not your average bunny. He's got enhanced abilities due to being exposed to radiation, and the story plays it straight. It's not comedy, but this rabbit is sent in on Black Ops missions for the government. So that it's Black Hops, and this bunny's no joke. But then in between missions, he lives on a farm with, is it Penelope?
Right.
Penelope seems to be breaking out as a character of her own.
Yeah, people liked her from the first volume, even though she's only in 3 pages total.
It's very end. Yeah, right.
But we found a way to work her in, and the way it works in Volume 2 to give her a larger role is she's not military; she's a civilian. She runs a ranch. And it's a family ranch, but it turns out that just as animals imprint on their owners, your dog has almost a childlike loyalty to you, sees you as kind of a surrogate father. The idea is that so you have USAGI, he can talk to other animals using pictograms and emojis and stuff. She can actually translate because he bonded to her, and so every generation that a new family member comes around, he can selectively pick who he wants. So she basically has to act as a translator. So she's kind of
she's the liaison between the government and the bunny.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. Which means that there's no shenanigans. One trope that we said we were going to avoid completely is because it's something we learned in G.I. Joe. In G.I. Joe, you rarely had instances where government is the bad guy. That's almost too predictable. It's the shady government is going to have shenanigans.
Right.
In G.I. Joe, you had a team called the Jugglers, and they were basically the deep state. It was just an arm. It was a cadre of generals, 6 generals who were up to no good. But in Black Ops, we want it so that the government and military is largely in a positive light, where it's kind of like, yeah, we send this guy on missions. They're not shady or anything. They're legit. They're real threats.
And
to
there
America.
are. I mean, I spent 9 years in the Air Force. I've spent time with legislative government. Not all government is evil. There are very good people in the government trying to do a good thing.
Right.
So I like that.
In particular with the military, this is a book that we wanted, especially if you grew up with G.I. Joe, if you're in the military, you don't have to worry about picking up our book and being like, oh, they're going to make the military the bad guy. It's like, no. They send USAGI and the Black Ops team on missions. They're legitimate missions. These are terrorists. These are bad people. Like, they're going to go in and fulfill the mission.
Yeah,
that's it.
Our comic's about the soldiers, not the politicians.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it's to tell exciting stories. Again, I mention this a lot, but it's important for people to understand the setup may seem humorous, but the stories are told straight.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a bunch of wacky hijinks and visual puns and that kind of thing.
Well, we put a lot of research into them. So for the first volume, we had to research the Punggye-ri nuclear test site in North Korea and get us all the information that's actually out there so we could write that story. We researched the actual nuclear incident. We based it around the missile launch incident in Hawaii. For this volume, it takes place on Hart Island in New York, which is off of Long Island Sound. And as Tim discovered, there is an actual military underground base installed on Hart Island.
Oh, how funny.
That was during the Eisenhower administration.
Yeah, so what happened was I like picking familiar. I like this idea in Hollywood movies where they pick a familiar location for no reason whatsoever than the fact that it looks cool.
And then underneath it, there's
something like, for example, like Alcatraz. Like, for example, let's think about X3. Like, why in the world did they pick Alcatraz as like?
Because it's cool location.
It's cool looking, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking to myself, Mark knows this, but I'm kind of fascinated with interesting locales and geography. And Hart Island is fascinating to me because not a lot of people know that Bobby Driscoll, the voice of Peter Pan, he's actually buried on the island because when he passed away, no one knew who he was. They found him as a homeless vagrant in New York. At the time, the fingerprint technology didn't exist to identify the body. He had lived in California, so he was buried in the Potter's Field at Hart Island. So there's millions of people.
You talking about the voice from the Disney Peter Pan?
Yeah, Disney Peter Pan, and he was also the little kid in Song of the South.
Wow.
And so he's buried on there. So Hart Island has a very fascinating backstory. So when we were trying to come up with this locale where we could potentially have like terrorists hold up. I was looking at it and it said, like, in 1956 during the Eisenhower administration, they actually put silos to house Nike Ajax missiles on there during the Cold War. And I was like, there's the island.
There you go.
Like, it is underneath. We have a fictional setup that has a historical basis. Let's put the base there. And so that's where the action takes place in this story.
Wow. So tell me about, there's two new team members.
Right.
That are joining USAGI this time around. So why don't you tell me about these two new characters? I'm fascinated, especially with one of them, but they both seem like fun characters.
They're both going to be great. And one thing we will like moving forward is people will start seeing Black Ops as a team as opposed to just USAGI. It's kind of like Ninja Turtles. You take one turtle out, even if it's your favorite, and then you realize that they're kind of weaker on their own because they work better as a whole. So we have Patriotter. And his origin, which is shown on
the IndieCron. And it's Patriot-R.
Stands for radioactive. Actually stands for Patriot Radioactive.
Okay.
Pronounce it Patriot.
Patriotter, of course.
But, what happened with him is there was a time during the previous administration where USAGI was decommissioned. He just wasn't working anymore. Partly because there was no part of the Eisenhower executive decision for the Black Ops team was that he always had to be accompanied by a family member. But because there was no one in that generation that was in the military, he had no accompaniment, so he was decommissioned. Just by happenstance, during the Fukushima reactor leak that happened in Japan, that's actually where Patriotter came from. He's an Asian small clawed otter.
Okay.
He happened to be there during the spill. Rigger Tortoise has... Like I said, we're trying to keep it down low because we're trying to not to spoil anything. He's a turtle.
Well, let me just tell you, Rigger Tortoise is like, you remember, have you ever seen the classic Batman cover with Batman or Robin jumping through the thing? And it says the character find of
1939.
Yeah. Rigger Tortoise is the character find of the millennium.
Right. And
so, yeah.
I do have an origin story for him that's not in the story. Really what happened was... Matthew Weldon, who I'm very good friends with, we love him. I told him, I said, I want you to work on this book with me next year, but I want you to come up with these character designs. And I said, I just want you to draw Patriotter. I don't know if he was tired or whatever happened that day, but he did a full spread where he just had all these illustrations. He redesigned USAGI, and I like the redesign better, and that's why he looks different in the second volume. He's scruffier, and I think part of it was inspired by My Rabbit. He saw like pictures of My Rabbit and how My Rabbit's a little bit hairier, so he used that as the design. I was like, oh my gosh, I love it. That looks so cool. And he drew this little turtle, and I was like, what's that turtle? And he said, oh, I'm sorry, I was just, my mind was thinking.
Yeah.
And
well, some of the best stuff comes from that.
Right, and I showed it to Mark, and Mark was like, what's up with that turtle? And I said, we're going to keep that turtle. And he said, you're kidding, right? And I told Matt, I said, no. Like
that turtle's happening.
I think Matt said that he's doing the composition, and he just had some empty white space left over in the bottom corner. He's like, I got to fill that with something, and I'll just draw a turtle.
So what... who came up with the name Rigger Tortoise?
He did.
Of course. Of course that's a Mark Pellegrini special.
So we had that little turtle that was on that piece of art, and Tim posted the hey everybody, concept drawings of Patriotter, and he posted it on Twitter, and people are like, what's up with the turtle?
I love the
like,
turtle.
Oh, well, we just posted that turtle. We got to use him now. So we just had to figure out a way to get him into the script, and so we're not going to say too much on him. But
all right, I'm all about Rigger Tortoise. The first time you said Rigger Tortoise is like my life got instantly better.
Well, we're always coming up with these dumb names. For example, like we've talked about it for next year. We don't want to expand. We don't want to expand the roster too big. But what we're gonna do is, if we do introduce new characters, it's almost like G.I. Joe Special Missions, where occasionally, depending on where they are, they're gonna pull from this guy or that guy. But we're gonna have a dog because everyone likes dogs, and his name's Commando G, or Command Dog. And then there was one that. Mark likes cats. Mark is a cat person.
So am I.
And so he wanted a character named Meowabunga.
It's taken.
It's taken.
Is it really?
Yeah. And it's funny. If you go on Google image search and you type in Meowabunga, the image that pops up is exactly what you expect it to look like. It's a cat on a skateboard with sunglasses.
But is it copyrighted?
Yes, somebody's already using it.
Oh, that would have been perfect. But you'll just you could do it. I have faith in you, Mark, that you can exceed that. So
we'll come up with something.
All right. So we've got about 4 minutes left here, and there's a couple of things I want to hit. One, folks, don't forget there's an Indiegogo right now for Black HOPS, Hare Trigger, and it starts at $20.
Right.
And that gets you the book, and it looks like a bookmark with Penelope on it, and USAGI. And then the $45,
which is the best one,
the bundle, which is what I did, is you get the book, you get the bookmark, and you get a plush.
Right.
And if you go to Twitter and look at my Twitter or Tim's, then that's, and I know people have been wanting a USAGI plush, and so there it is.
We premiered them at Bell County Comic Con, and they sold really well.
Really
People
quick.
loved them. Yeah.
And then you got a sign bundle where you get basically the book and the bookmark and the plush, but you get the book signed
by 4 of us, all 4 people in the team. We'll actually meet in one place and sign all copies.
And then you get a page bundle, which is what you get in addition to everything else, you get a hand-drawn page courtesy of Metro.
Correct. And it's not stated on the page, but when you go to checkout, if you want the original copy of Black Ops 1, or if you want the Penelope pinup poster that was actually sponsored by our friends at Weapon Outfitters, it's there at checkout. So the moment you go and check out, it'll say, hey, do you want to add these options on?
Yeah, and it's like a live cosplay poster of somebody who looks just like Penny, holding a bunny.
Yeah, and it goes to a rescue, too. So it's going to go to Pacific Northwest Rescue.
Nice. And I saw today a trailer online that was done really well. So I don't know who threw that together for you, but it was done. It was done well. Yeah.
Oh, I think I did it.
Yeah. Is that you? Yeah.
Yeah. So it was Spicy Ramen Productions. It's actually our friend David Newman in San Antonio.
Yeah.
He's working closely with Johnny with Iconic Comics, and he contributed some of the graphics for it.
All right. So I've literally got about a minute for you on this. What is Iconic Comics?
In 2020, it's going to be a way of getting your books printed and fulfilled in the domesticated United States. So if you're an indie comics person and you want to have help on your logistics, printing, and fulfillment, then we'll have more details as the year progresses. But it's Iconic Comics. It's an imprint. They're not going to be printing everyone's, but they're going to be taking about 2 or 3 titles a year. So that's one to look out for, one to pay attention to.
That almost sounds like kind of like how Image does it. I'm not saying that bad. It allows creators to keep control of their properties, but gives them access to professional ways to get it out there.
And the way he's going to be making money off of it is he's going to collect costs for labor.
Okay.
And he's going to print a certain number of copies that he himself can sell at conventions. But you get to keep everything else.
Iconic Comics. People keep a lookout in. And the stuff I've seen, Black Ops has the Iconic on it. And I like that name, Iconic.
Yeah,
that's
thank you.
very good. Okay, guys, we got to draw down. Zach, what do you got left? About a minute. All right, I got to do the bad joke of the week, but I picked this one out for you, Mark.
Oh boy,
because it's a word play and it's a bad word play.
Can't be worse than Hare Trigger or Buns the Patriot.
We'll see. Okay, guys, so we've had Watergate, we've had Gamergate, and we've had Comicsgate. Let's hope Elon Musk never gets into a big scandal, because Elon Gate would be really drawn out.
Oh, wow.
That was just for you, pal. Both of you, really, but I knew Mark would really groan on that one.
I could follow up with something, but it's not safe for radio.
All right, guys, thanks for coming in, folks. Black Hops, USA, GI, Hare Trigger with Tim and Mark and Matthew Weldon doing art. And is it Bill? Who's doing the lettering?
Bill's doing the lettering.
Bill's doing the lettering. Guys, check it out. You want to get in on this. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next week on Shane Plays.
Thanks, Shane.
Cool,
Yeah,
thanks.
thank you, guys.
And now, foul demon, face the vengeance of the Moon Knight. The moon led me to this heinous villain so I could stop her, and the moon will not tolerate your interference.
The moon? Is that code for something? Oh! No way I'm letting you near that little girl!
I will not allow this spider-face villain to stand in your way. I, the moon's knight of vengeance, must carry out your luminous will.
Are you seriously talking to the moon?
Shane Plays Radio is blessed to have sponsors, and we appreciate them very much. However, did you know that you can also support the show as an individual for as little as $1 an episode? Simply go to patreon.com/ShanePlays.